Hello there, it's Lisa Starr with StarrCast, and I'm here today with my esteemed guest, Andrew Gibson, who needs no introduction for most people in the wellness world. Andrew is a wellness innovator, well known, has lived all over the world and worked in a variety of capacities in the wellness world. And I'm so lucky that he's agreed to chat with us today. Welcome, Andrew.
Hi, welcome, Lisa. Thanks.
You're welcome. So, Andrew is an Englishman, and we were just chatting about his journey from childhood on and how did he come to be such a well regarded wellness innovator today. So, Andrew's going to fill us in a little bit on how that path looked for him growing up.
Well, thanks, Lisa. And what I want to try to do, because I've had the best part of 35 years in this industry, is to just highlight on some pretty significant things that have occurred on my journey. And hopefully, they act as an inspiration to some people that are perhaps thinking of getting into this industry or thinking of what their next career move is.
Perfect.
For me, I actually didn't know what I wanted to do at the age of 18. The school I went to, very few people went on to university, and I certainly wasn't going to be one of them. And I had no idea what I was going to do. So I thought safety first, and I decided that I would try and work at a city bank in London and get a career in banking. And as that turned out, it turned out really well. I applied and I got accepted for one of the very good, smaller sort of merchant banks, and very rapidly got promoted to their city office, director's office area. But there was something that just put a little seed in me along that process, because I was doing my Institute of Bankers exams, studying 3 nights a week, playing football for the bank, which gave me 2 days off a week to go and play for the bank.
Fun.
And yeah, it was fun. But just prior to that job, one of my school teachers said to me, "Oh, there's this new program that's just being launched for university students to go and work on summer camps in America. Would you be interested?" And I thought, well, first of all, I'm not a university student. Secondly, I'm not old enough. And third, I'm going to go and start working at a bank. As it turned out, the bank didn't need me till September. So I had 3 months to kill. Very long story short, because that's a whole sort of chapter in itself. But I ended up going to America, working on a summer camp. This was in 1976, working on a summer camp in Pennsylvania, and thoroughly enjoyed that experience. So roll on sort of 3 or 4 years later, now I'm in the bank and I'm enjoying myself. I thought, that summer camp in America, I kind of like that. I'd like to do a bit of a hiatus and go back out to America and do another one of those. So I asked the bank, and the bank said yes. And that was it. That was a turning point, because that one, I not only came back out to America and did that summer camp, but I then took a cross-country journey from New York to Los Angeles, met a girl en route, ended up in Huntington Beach, playing soccer in Anaheim Stadium, and sort of getting my whole mind twisted around this new concept in the very early 1980s, that new concept being recreation management. So I thought, that's interesting. And somebody in America said to me, "Why don't you go to university and study this subject? You seem to be naturally inclined to think this way, so why don't you go and do that?" Again, a long story short, but I applied to go to university in both America and in England. And in England, I would get a full government grant to pay my tuition fees, accommodation fees, and everything.
It's a little pricier here.
Little pricier. And because I've been an income taxpayer in the UK for a number of years, I was entitled to go to university. So I did, and I went to university and I studied 2 absolutely radically new subjects in the UK. So new that one of them was still being developed, and I was the first people on the course. And that was something that I wanted to do, recreation management. But the other subject that was particularly interesting and brand new was something called environmental conservation, which today is sustainability today.
Right.
And that was brilliant. I had such a great time doing those studies, and I graduated with a distinction. And there, my career then did start to move into what has morphed into where we are today. The first phase of that was actually fitness. There was the 1980s fitness craze, the Jane Fonda videos and so on. So with recreation management sort of evolving into private health clubs and private clubs, I got to open up. My very first job in this industry was to open up the first ever leisure centre at a Gatwick Airport hotel. And we had swimming pool, we had jacuzzis, saunas, steam room.
And that was never done at the time, right? I mean, that must have
never
been
done.
one
It
of
was
the
the first time a hotel had spent £1 million in the UK, and I got the job to open it.
Lucky
Fantastic.
you.
We had squash courts, a gym, and very quickly I realized that not only could you sort of do membership fees, but you could get fees out of providing treatments. Now, in those days, we didn't think about treatments. It was a gym and maybe a swimming pool or some squash or something like that. But we had air stewardesses staying as an airport hotel, and they had nothing to do for 3 or 4 days. So I converted my offices and the back of house area into a Renegino salon. And of course, we made a fortune. We really captured the market and did very well.
That's hilarious. So you don't need your office, do facials in here.
Yeah, exactly. And so from there, I got headhunted to Abu Dhabi to work for the Intercontinental Hotels, and worked in Abu Dhabi for a few years. And then I got transferred to Oman in Muscat for Condé Nast's best hotel in the world, the Al Bustan Palace. And from there, I did 10 years in Oman, and I did a crazy bunch of things, from organizing and setting up tennis leagues and squash leagues, creating an international yacht race around the Straits of Hormuz with the Admiral of the Navy, writing books in sort of self-guided tours of Oman to find waterfalls and hidden caves and things like this. And then in 1994, I think it was, around about that time, I'm a bit hazy, one of the royal family of Oman gave me some money and said, build a ladies' centre.
Wow.
There's nothing for ladies in Oman, build a ladies' centre.
Well, it's good they noticed that.
In those days, I think Chiva Som was just getting established. So Chiva Som was the big buzz place. Anybody in the industry knew Chiva Som. And I thought, well, I'll find out who did that and ask them. You know, what do I know? I'll ask somebody who does know. So I did, and I contacted a guy called Alan Weiwei, who's a terrific guy. And he introduced me to Susan Sims, who worked with him. And they came over and gave me some advice. And long story short, I built a 30,000 square foot, 3,000 square meter ladies' health spa with a private hospital above it on one of the most exclusive parts of the beaches in Muscat. And we took 600 members on the first week. It was four ladies run by ladies.
I'm sure they loved it.
Yeah, it was. We had an Amani Dagger style swimming pool with gold in it. We had all kinds of things. But there, I learned my first big lesson: never think you know everything. Don't be too cocky and think you know everything. And Susan Sims was quite good. We were in the treatment room. She said, "These treatment rooms are great. You've thought of it. You've got even a steam shower. This was in those days. A steam shower in them is great. I even had almost a Vichy type table in one place." She said, "They're great, but just one word of advice: don't put such big mirrors in there because it makes me look like a beached whale on the table. I don't want to see myself. So I thought, okay, yeah, you must get the best advice you can and listen to the advice you get. But from there, the next big turning point in my life, apart from meeting my wife and discovering Sweden as a result of that, but the next big result, both Karen and I took the decision to go it alone and thought we'd build our own place. And actually, I still wasn't fully committed to what was then the newly developing spa industry. But I had the good fortune of meeting Bjorn Borg, the best tennis player in the world. And so I thought, well, I'm going to do a tennis academy in Cyprus. That's where Karen and I would like to live. It's English speaking. It's close to England, close to Sweden. Brilliant climate, Mediterranean diet. What could you argue about? So I thought, what can I do? And I thought, okay, I can run a tennis academy. I'm chairman of the tennis leagues here. I've set it all up. I know what to do. So again, long story short, a 3-year story condensed into 3 minutes. The retreat at Aphrodite Hills, so you can go to www.aphroditehills.com and look up the retreat, is brainchild of mine that was created on the kitchen table in Muscat and took 3 years of negotiating, developing a little bit of bullshit and bravado to provide the
Sure.
developers of Aphrodite Hills that I was the guy that would build their tennis academy, not the retreat, not the health club or the health spa, but a tennis academy. When I went over to Cyprus and they showed me the land, I just said, I can do it all. I can build, this is my vision. This is what I can do. It'll be a Greek monastery over some ancient Greek baths, replicating the history of legacy of the history of the Greek islands and all sort of Aphrodite, because it was at the birthplace of Aphrodite and so on. And that's what we did. And it's an award-winning location. Very, very proud of that project. And that kind of pushed me full stream into the spa industry. And I thought, oh, great, I've done this. If I do 10 of these around the Mediterranean and own 10 of these, all I'll do is spend my life swanning around, hanging around the Mediterranean and visiting each one of my locations. So that was my plan. But it wasn't quite the same plan as my Cypriot partners that had given me great faith in me and great foresight to see what was going to happen, because they were taking a big risk. As it turned out, it was a good risk to take, but they weren't so inclined to do more things. They were very focused on this particular development, which is an outstanding development. And that was fine. I thought, okay, it just means I'd take a bit longer. And then a guy called Sono Shivdansani came to me. And Sono was the creator of Six Senses.
Right.
So he had some properties in Thailand and some properties in the Maldives, and not really much, to be honest, and to be open, not a lot of organization about it.
Yes.
But they were running. And at that time, it wasn't actually Six Senses. It was Everson and Soneva were the names. And he was creating this brand Six Senses, which was, and he asked me to come and join him and basically take and run with Six Senses spas. So I created Six Senses Spas with the team there. We built a whole sort of human resources labor team together, got some really good talent in there. And I spent the next 3 or 4 years traveling the world, negotiating contracts to put Six Senses Spas all over the world. We did 33 locations in the first 3 years, which meant I was traveling probably 20 days a month, and Sono, being as dynamic and as exciting as he was, he said, Andrew, you're going to be in Singapore, so why don't you pop over to Fiji and see what's going on over there? Oh yeah,
what an experience!
So yeah, it was, and it was really exciting, very dynamic times, a great team of people. Bernard Bonenberger was just such a creative talent in his thought process about what could be created with Six Senses. And we hit the market at exactly the right time. That was when hotels were demanding spas and didn't know what to do, and we were able to play on the fact that you leave it up to the experts, let us deal with it. So not only did we have a great story on a very, very strong story in sustainability, but we also had the expertise to actually set these up and manage them. And that was going along fine. Great company, Six Senses, taught me everything about sort of natural luxury or using nature and using the kind of resources around you to create a superb environment for people. And I was starting to get well known in the industry by that time, and so attending different networking events. And I can't underestimate to anybody listening to this panel, when you go to these trade events, take the opportunity to come and speak to people like me or to you, Lisa, or anybody they see. Don't be afraid to go up and talk to them. That's what the event is there. It's for networking, and that's how you build your contacts up. And I built up a few contacts through Six Senses, and lo and behold, Mandarin Oriental approached me and said, would you like to come and join Mandarin Oriental? We've got a team together and we're going in a direction, and we'd like you to come in and take over. That was slightly different because it wasn't starting from scratch. Some work had already been done on it, but it was still at the very early stages of it. And again, from Mandarin Oriental, we went from 10 hotels to 24 hotels in the time I was there. and we certainly put Mandarin Oriental on the map in terms of wellness and evolution. It wasn't just a spa, it was a whole sort of approach to it. And that was because the CEO of Mandarin Oriental got it. He got wellness. He got it. He knew that this was a USP for Mandarin Oriental. And I think if you look at what Jeremy McCarthy's doing with Mandarin now, he's taken it a step further. He's evolved it a much further. And that was great. And that was the right thing to do. Everybody has their own particular expertise and niche. And sort of when you get stale, it is good to, and I felt that for me, I probably I did 7 years with Mandarin Oriental, and I'd taken it probably as far as I was able to take it and what I was doing.
And that was far. I must say that
Oh,
those
yes.
hotels have amazing spas, and everyone.
Oh,
I mean, they're just
you
fantastic.
know, because we had such a passionate team with Andrea Lomas and Sean O'Connor coming in, the attention to detail in the build was absolutely exceptional. And then with Petra Roberts as the trainer, that was unusual. To have your full-time dedicated trainer, not to outsource that, was really powerful. So we had a great team there. We had a smaller number of hotels to manage, and we were able to put a tremendous amount of effort and time into it. But we were also supported by the senior executives of Mandarin Oriental, and that was very important.
Well, you jumped from a 30-some hotel situation to a much larger one. How did that happen?
Well, again, headhunting. I've never gone out and actively sought jobs. People have come to me, which I guess is kind of nice. Accor were going through, well, actually, it wasn't Accor in those days. It was FRHI, and FRHI was brand new because it was a combination of Fairmont, Raffles, and Swiss hotels. And Amacor had been basically looking after all of that area. And they just had as FRHI became established as the controlling company of those three brands, they had a massive reorganization. And they asked me if I would come and head up this organization and now do what I was doing for Mandarin Oriental, but do it for the three brands. And that was great. I mean, when you've got a brand like Raffles Hotels, how can you not want to? I mean, if you think of Six Senses, Mandarin Oriental, then the only other two brands you'd probably want to be interested in was either Raffles or Peninsula.
Right. So iconic.
Yeah. And then not only do you get Raffles, but you also have then two other tiers with Swiss Hotel and Fairmont. It was brilliant. I thought, that's great. This is going to be really interesting. Plus, it was also another tweak of this. Remember, I've gone now from fitness to spa. And now, as you probably think about sort of the early 2000s, we were just starting to conceptualize the wellness. I think if you look at Mia and Jeremy when they were at Starwood and starting to create W hotels and what was going on with the W hotels with their wellness concepts and things like this, it was just starting to creep in. So I thought, great, I have an opportunity now to not only just think about a spa and a gym and a pool, I can think about the entire wellness design, development, and thought process throughout the hotels.
That sounds exciting.
It was, and I've always sort of been thinking, what can I do next, and what's the next area? And what happened was, within a year of getting there, Accor bought FRHI. And so we spent 18 months of not quite knowing what was going to happen, who was going to keep a job and who didn't keep a job. And I got asked to say, okay, we'd like to keep you. You can stay in Dubai, which is where I was based in those days. And what would you like to do? I said, well, I'd like to be VP of Wellbeing. And they said, Wellbeing? What is well-being?
That?
Yeah, exactly. What's that? I said, well, that is everything to do with the hotel. So when you're building new hotels, we're going to look at the guest rooms. We're going to look at the layout of it. We're going to think about the whole wellness journey. So it's not just the services we provide, it's the facilities as well. And they said, well, okay, fine. And now was interesting because now you have 4,000 hotels.
That's a big jump from 30.
Yes, but I only had 600 or 700 of them because the rest of them were in different brackets. So it's only four.
Only 600 or 700. Okay.
Yeah, exactly. And then if you boil that down into, I mean, everything I've approached when you're dealing with scale is you look at an elephant and you eat it one bite at a time. So you're organized, you choose your priorities and you choose which things you're going to tackle and how you're going to tackle them. And the most important thing was to build a good team, and I was able to get a great team already. Accor had with Aldina in looking after the Sofitel brands, and I brought Lindsay Madden-Nadeau in, who had worked with both Fairmont and Raffles previously. And it's all about the people you get. I mean, one of the things, my favorite quote actually is, the art of leadership is getting other people to do what you want them to do because they want to do it.
Well
and
spoken.
so it's just so find a great team, find the best people you can get, and then give them very clear goals and objectives, and then support to get them going on where they're going, and just keep reinforcing and supporting them. And that's how I guess I've been lucky enough to look good, is because I've had great people around me everywhere I've gone, and they've done brilliant jobs.
Well, you have great people around you because you attract them, Andrew. Let's face it.
Well, thank you.
I mean, I'm thinking about how visionary that was at Accor, what you were speaking of, because we had spa and wellness, which was a thing you did in the spa. You went down to the spa,
Yes.
and that's where you had it. And so you were at the forefront of bringing that out of the four walls of the spa and into the property and integrating it, which is so important, as we know, for today's world.
Yeah. And I think, so I think it's important. I don't think anybody, or very few people, have brilliantly innovative ideas that are 100% their own. They've seen something and it's triggered an idea and triggered some thought process, and then they've been able to modify it, evolve it. But most importantly, to actually execute and deliver it. That's the key. And so a lot of the things I saw were starting to happen. And that's why VP of Wellbeing was important to me, to create that title. One, because everybody can say, what is that? So it's always going to have that question, and then you have to explain what it is, not only internally to CEOs around the world and general managers, but also externally to the public. But also it's externally to the public itself. You have to sort of create those stories. And VP of Wellbeing gave me the opportunity to extend the thought process into the guest rooms. And that I could see with Delos coming out with the work that Delos was starting to do. And that was very embryonic. At that stage, I was privileged enough to go and see their setup at the MGM in Las Vegas, which was their first thing they did. And I thought, yeah, this is gonna be the future. This is where it's going for the future. Now, at the moment, Delos have created a really good niche and of really taking that on. But what you are seeing as we evolve into the future are more and more hotel brands coming in that are starting to use the word wellness in different ways, and starting to interpret that in the style and the story that they're giving for their particular brand. And one of the first ventures that I was able to really go wild and experiment, and I am very thankful to a lady called Lillian Rotan, who is the brand manager of Swiss Hotels, because she listened to what I was saying, and probably a lot of what I was saying was gobbledygook to many of my hotelier colleagues. But she got what I was saying and said, listen, I'll give you a suite in a Swiss hotel in Zurich, and we'll build your wellness guest room in there. We did it with a company called Wallpaper, which is a magazine. And we put a lot of things in there. Now, my goal was not to determine what room rate premium we would get. That was a byproduct. That was something that
for the revenue managers.
Yeah. But my goal was to say, okay, which things are gimmicks and which things do the guest really want? What are the things that the guest's going to really want? Because if you find out what the guest really wants, it becomes scalable, and therefore it becomes cheaper to be able to put into new build hotels.
Right.
So, for example, air quality is something that the guests would never have put down that it was particularly important to them until they experience it. And when they've experienced good air quality, and it's a noticeable difference in their room to outside of their room, or in a polluted city, for example, then that's something they do notice and appreciate. And that's a fairly easy fix if you're at the design and build stage. So that kind of thing, lighting, good quality sleep, these are kind of things we kind of know now, but you needed those things proved. Exercise equipment in a room isn't particularly necessary. However, space to do exercise in a room is a premium.
For
and having
sure.
therefore the right kind of supporting equipment to be able to do that. But if you're going to do exercise in your guest room, you better increase the air quality turnover, because you're otherwise going to have a sweaty, damp room when people have finished exercising in there.
So
So there's all these sort of things.
if this is the way of the future, like having these rooms that are purpose built for wellness, will there still be a place for the spa? You know, we have about 5 minutes left. I'd like to hear from
Yes.
you about where do spas and wellness go now?
Well, I think the world's spa is probably at a plateau. I don't think it's on a downward dip in terms of popularity, or I think, but I do think it's plateauing. And I think what you're going to see in hotels, you're already starting to see it in some new brands. In fact, I saw that Kersner Group have just launched a new hotel brand built around wellness.
Hmm.
Um, but I think you'll see more open lobby experiences. The whole lobby experience is going to change, particularly in five-star hotels. They just haven't figured out how to keep the luxury element of five-star with the sort of open, flowy feel of a 3 or 4 star
Hmm.
lobby. But they'll get there with that. For sure, hotel rooms going to change, but you're still going to want to have treatments. Perhaps it won't be such a big space as it was before, but I still think that treatments are going to be required and desired. I think actually one of the things that I think the industry is ready to do now is to bring beauty back into spa. It's already happening in most places, but
Hmm.
let's say the more purist spa people have tended to shy away from the more radical beauty areas.
You mean
And
hair and nails and
I
makeup?
mean,
Yeah.
so could be things like the Botox, or
Okay.
it could be IV injections. It could
Hmm.
be sort of those more controversial areas. Um, but I think that they will bring it back. And I suspect the reason why we had such a division of spa and beauty 20 years ago, 15 years ago, is because the spa industry was carving out its niche and trying to say, this is what spas are and this is how
Sure.
we are, and be pure to that. But you've got to make money. Today, revenue managers are looking at every dollar per square foot. You've got to make money. And so I do think that you're going to bring in more beauty treatments, more controversial treatments, or controversial is perhaps not the right word, more
Like
radical beauty.
the low touch
Yes.
treatments as well. That's a big trend right
Well,
now.
but I think, see, I think we always used to say that we were low tech, high touch in the
Hmm.
spa. Well, actually, I think we're now high tech, high touch.
Hmm.
And I think technology is enormous, going to play on it. We in Sweden here, we're not quite cashless yet. We're almost cashless. And there is plans to go cashless. I notice myself, I hardly ever use cash
Mm.
anymore.
Me too.
There's so many, and the same in when I was living out in San Diego with your telephone here and the different
Right, right.
methods of passing money around, which is secure, safe. You get mugged, okay, you just quickly get your phone disconnected and everything else. Um, so I think technology is going to creep into the hotels enormously, which will reduce labor costs. The one thing I do have a little bit of concern about, particularly as I see from the United States more than ever, is that um, if you're not already a core brand, if spa and wellness is not a core brand value in a hotel group, it's more likely that they'll outsource it now to a third party operator rather than go through all of the
Mm.
expense of creating their own wellness team,
Well, that will
because it is
create a very
expensive.
fragmented experience, though, right?
Well, you and I both know that. We
Mm.
personally agree that, but try telling a general manager that. The general manager will say, I'm focused on my rooms revenue, and maybe
Hmm.
I'll look at the food and beverage if we haven't outsourced that. But the spa brings in such a little percentage of the revenue anyway. I don't really worry about that. I just want it to be good service. I do agree with you. I think it fragments it. And I think that's the strength of brands like Six Senses and Mandarin Oriental, quite frankly, is that you see that the resources that they have repeatedly applied to delivering a seamless service that not only is departmental, but it's institutional across the whole of the company.
Well, Andrew, you were one of the first people to speak up to the power of the spa and its effect on ADR and
Yes,
occupancy
correct.
length and overall spend in the hotel, which are all difficult to measure, and yet they do impact. But from a revenue management standpoint, I know they want to see on that line what is this bringing in, and it
W-
creates a
One of the
difficulty.
things, one of the things that I was very pleased to do, and I'm actually now selling the process. So I developed a software that's a cloud-based software that can measure all the KPIs for
Hmm.
people, irrespective of what software you're currently using, or if let's say you've got 10 spas and the 10 spas have got 10 different softwares for measuring their revenues. This cloud will go above all of those systems, measure it all, and give you your daily figures in KPI formats and all kinds of analytics on it to be able to know where you stand. And eventually, I hope to be able to get that so that you'll be able to see your regional competitors. You won't know who they are, but you'll be able to see regional prices so that you can see it all around you. Because Lisa, you're right. I remember back in 2007 with Anne McCall, who was Fairmont at that time, and I was Mandarin Oriental, that we got Smith Travel Research to actually
Hmm.
do some surveys on spas in America. But it's very difficult. People are a bit nervous of sharing. I think if you don't collect the data, how can you present a argument to the general managers of hotels or the regional managers to persuade them that actually the revenue you get out of spa might only be a fraction of a percent of the hotel, but now look at the ADR, look at the extra spend on food, look at the extended stay, the
Hmm.
length of stay, look at the double occupancy figures, all of those things that make a significant difference.
Well, you're right, though. Until we start tracking them and we get really good numbers, we're going to have a challenge. But there's no doubt that the world of wellness has opened up to consumers, especially now, and the way forward looks great. I love what you've shared. And in closing, I'd like to ask you two quick questions.
Yes.
One, what is the best place you lived? You've lived all over the world. What's been your favorite?
Oh, that's very difficult to answer because every single place has had its own unique uh, specialty and different times, some with children, some alone. So everybody's had a place. But I can say I decided back in the early 1990s when my wife and I got married, my wife's Swedish, that we would buy a place in Sweden so that our children would always have the opportunity to have Swedish and English culture exposed to them. Little did I know that by doing that and buying my little house in a village in Sweden, I would end up basically saying, well, that's where I'm going to spend the rest of my life living, as a permanent residence. And that's where I am today. So you can see in the background, it's not
Hmm.
such a bad place.
No, not too bad.
Um, not too bad. And I think Sweden, from a cultural perspective, has a wonderfully healthy life. They've had sustainability since the Second World War. They teach nature as one of the first subjects they teach when children go to school. They just, I mean, that site you're seeing in the background is Sweden's oldest wellness retreat, dating from 1772. So
So
I
what
love
I'm
it.
hearing is Sweden is the best spot.
I would have to say Sweden. Yeah, that's the current one. So if you asked me when I was living in Bangkok where the best place was, I would have said Bangkok. If you'd
Hmm.
asked me in Cyprus, I would have said Cyprus. They're all of them are very good, but Sweden, yeah, is something special.
So, in closing, the world of wellness, is it time to double down? What's your last sharing bit?
Define double down.
Well, investing, getting into it. Is this the time to
Oh,
get a career in the wellness industry?
I think this, I mean, we've had a great journey over the last 20 to 25 years in seeing the evolution of the fitness industry morph into the spa industry that's now morphing into the wellness industry. And there are so many diverse career paths right now. I suspect, I suspect that most corporations in the world will, within the next 5 years, have a chief wellness officer.
Hmm.
That person will be looking after the welfare of the employees in many, many different ways. So that's one creative area in that area. And that'll be a C-suite job because it'll be so important when they discover the savings in labor that they can make
And insurance, health
yeah, all of those
insurance.
things. So I think wellness travel it was the fastest growing area of tourism prior to COVID. And all of the indications and messages I'm hearing from the industry post this summer are that it won't just recover, it will boom again. And I think mental health, lockdown, all of those kind of things are just going to have made people more aware that they need to look after themselves, and more aware that they need to be social and need to socialize. So I think there's fantastic opportunities. I think, yes, our industries have suffered heavily because of the layoffs, because of lack of business, but it will come back. And I think that career-wise, it's a great career-wise. I think just to finish on that, I mean, I could look back and say, yeah, well, what if I'd stayed at Six Senses? What if I'd stayed at Mandarin? And there's many things. And one of the things that I can say is, I'm not rich, and I don't think I would ever have been rich, although I probably would have probably had more wealth than I have today. But I've had a very, very diverse career that it's totally full of enjoyment. There's a long way to go. There's a lot of new opportunities. I'm very excited about what's coming in the future. I'm very much into wellness communities, developing resorts, and those kind of things. So I think there's a great career ahead of people. And one of the things I like to do is to mentor young people and to give them advice and help them along the way. And in fact, there's one person I've just been doing that to now, who's just landed a really good position that she's very pleased with. And quite frankly, it's because when she came and worked for me in my last job I had before here, I could see in her that she had a time to go, and put her into a position that just pushed her a little bit.
Well, Andrew, thank you for sharing that wisdom with your mentees and the rest of us who are listening, and inspiring us in the wellness world to keep pushing forward. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Lisa. Thanks. And to everybody, this is a great industry. And I really think that there's a long way to go. I think we're actually at a moment where it's no longer a sort of a periphery part or a luxury add-on. It is going to be central to the way we live.
Thanks, Andrew.
Thank you. Okay. Bye-bye.